The trade deadline has passed. The Brewers, notably active in one position and not so active in another. And to top it all off, Corbin Burnes gets roughed up and he loses command for an inning. And the Brewers fall to the Pirates. Tuesday might have been one of the worst days of the season. Not really any good vibes happening right now. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 3rd. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. This is Locked On Brewers, your only daily podcast dedicated to the Brewers all season long. And everybody, let's just take a deep breath. This is going to be a heavy episode, to say the least, as we assess the trade deadline, how it turned out for the Brewers, what my thoughts are about the final few minutes of the trade deadline, David Stearns' comments, Devin Williams' comments, a lot to get into. Before we do that, I want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And right now, they've got the Blue Nile anniversary sale happening. You can save 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and even 25% on engagement ring settings. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. I'm the statistician for Bally Sports Wisconsin. I was watching along last night with you. For everybody who participated in our last two live shows, we had a live trade reaction to the Josh Hader trade on Monday. That's available to watch on demand on YouTube. And we also had a live reaction to, or a live kind of lead into the trade deadline yesterday from 4:30 to 5:15 before the game yesterday. That's also available to watch on YouTube, where we post all the video versions of our podcast as well. And the end of the day, here is everything that has come into the Brewers organization in these last 48 hours or so. Robert Gasser and Esteury Ruiz, two minor leaguers. Gasser, a left-handed starter, Ruiz, an outfielder. Dinelson Lamet and Taylor Rogers in the big league bullpen now. Matt Bush acquired into the big league bullpen. And Trevor Rosenthal acquired into the big league bullpen, but not quite healthy yet. He will be on the injured list. There's a lot of directions to go with this. The Brewers, in the end, gave up the only big league player they gave up was Josh Hader. They also, as far as guys on the 40-man, Mark Mathias was the only guy on the 40-man roster. Then two other minor leaguers, Antoine Kelly and Tristan Peters, are also on their way. Now sitting here as we talked on Monday saying it feels like something else is coming. It feels like something else is coming. The Brewers aren't going to be done with just doing the Josh Hader deal. They're going to add a position player. They're going to add something else. And hindsight is 20/20, of course. We knew the Brewers weren't real players in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. We also knew that if the Nationals did not package Josh Bell with Juan Soto, which they did to the Padres yesterday, yeah, if you haven't heard, by the way, Juan Soto and Josh Bell are Padres now, that the Brewers would be making a run at Josh Bell. They never got the chance because he was packaged with Juan Soto. Then they got beat to the punch the day before with Trey Mancini going to the Houston Astros. When the Astros found out they were probably out on Josh Bell, that's when they pivoted and got Trey Mancini and Christian Vasquez. And that Christian Vasquez deal made ripples in the market because them getting Vasquez instead of a Wilson Contreras, who was not traded yesterday, as well as Ian Happ. In the words of David Stearns, he was kind of surprised at some of the prices on position players, and some teams would not budge, and that was echoed across baseball, and I think this is kind of jabbed at the Cubs, the fact that everyone's really surprised they held on to their two guys. The analysis now is that they're probably going to give the qualifying offer to Wilson Contreras and just roll the dice with the competitive balance pick that they're going to get. And Ian Happ still has another year of control, so they can go through this again next year with Ian Happ. But hey, cool, Cubs. You get to keep hugging your guys and showing it. Good for you guys. Anyway, the thing that jumps out to me is the Brewers couldn't do it, but in hindsight, what was realistically available for the Brewers? Ramon Laureano is someone I have been pining for a long time now, but the A's were in no rush to move him, just like turned out to be no rush to move Sean Murphy. We've talked about him a few times going to Cleveland because of the team control. He's not expensive yet. The A's are in a payroll-cutting mode, so they weren't in a urgency to trade Ramon Laureano like they were to Frankie Montas. When you look at JD Martinez. That would have been a massive splash in the market. And I talked about this in the live show yesterday. Once Juan Soto was traded earlier in the morning, the Red Sox held the keys to the car. They could drive it 100 miles an hour down the road and sell everybody if they wanted to, or they could put it in cruise control in the right lane and just coast and say, you know what, pretty happy with what we got. See if they can run it back next year or just go for extensions and things of that nature. And they chose the latter. They chose the coast. Chose to not do much. There was rumors JD Martinez would be available. I thought he would have been a great fit for the Brewers. Would have been a high cost, of course, for that rental. He never was traded. There was obviously rumors about Rafael Devers with his added team control. He also was not traded. They did trade a bullpen piece in Jake Diekman. They did trade Christian Vasquez. They added Tommy Pham for some reason. They added Eric Hosmer and taking on his cash from the Padres and that whole debacle with that trade. A lot happened yesterday, and a lot having to do with money. And the Hosmer trade, the $39 million he's owed, brings me to my soapbox rant about the trades yesterday for the Brewers, and specifically acquiring Trevor Rosenthal. Not everything is sunshine and lollipops, to say the least. I try to put a positive spin on as much as I can, but I want to be critical in the fair moments. And this is one of those moments I'm going to be critical. You're paying $4.5 million for a guy who hasn't pitched in the big leagues in 2 years and is coming off of thoracic outlet syndrome surgery and hip labrum surgery, who has also cramped his hamstring in his showcase and is on the IL with the hamstring. $4.5 million for that. And the roster crunch and the belief of, not going to be able to afford the $15 million next year for Josh Hader for what he's being owed, and now we acquire Taylor Rogers to, save some money in that regard. $4.5 million for a guy, again, who has not pitched in the big league since 2020. A's signed him to a ton of money last year. He never pitched a single ball for them last year. And gets signed by the Giants. And the Brewers, David Stearns admitted they liked what they saw in that showcase. They attended the showcase from Trevor Rosenthal. They didn't get a chance to sign him. So not only do they have to trade an outfield prospect, they have to take on the money. And we're sitting here acting like it's a small market and sitting here acting like, they need to be smart with their money. $4.5 million for a guy that's not going to play more than 15 games out of the bullpen, 20 games out of the bullpen? What? I am so confused about that. Especially when you just acquired Matt Bush, another hard-throwing right-hander. You've got Justin Topa on the way back. You've got Jake Cousins on the way back. And you still got to add Freddie Peralta, who's starting today, back onto the 40-man roster. There's no room for this move. There's no room. I don't understand it. If Trevor Rosenthal comes back and healthy, we've seen him be really, really good with the Cardinals, of course. More than 40 saves in back-to-back years. He was an all-star in 2015. You know what he's capable of. But since he missed all of 2018 with injury. He was bounced around in 2019. He pitched for 2 different teams and he only appeared in 22 games in 2019. Shortened season in 2020, spent that with San Diego and with Kansas City. And then didn't even throw a pitch with the A's in 2021 after his hip surgery, and was signed by the Giants, hasn't thrown a pitch for them, and is currently on the IL with the hamstring. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Depth is a good thing, but at the same time, the Brewers might have too much depth, especially in the bullpen right now. There's no room for this move. There's no room. And big decisions are coming when it comes to who's going to be taken off the 40-man. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. What does the future outlook of the 26 and the 40-man rosters look like after the trade deadline? What's moving on? What's going to happen? And we're going to get a little bit into the game that actually happened yesterday, too. I just wanted to rant for a second here because I've defended a lot about Mark Atanasio. I've defended a lot about David Stearns and Matt Arnold. I think they're really freaking good at their jobs. Christian Yelich agrees. Brandon Woodruff agrees. Their comments from the clubhouse yesterday were exactly what you'd expect from team leaders like that. It's impossible to bat 1,000 when you're making trades, and I think this one was a swing and a miss. Now, if Trevor Rosenthal comes out and, 20 scoreless innings, or he has a .89 ERA and he makes me eat crow, I'll own that. I'll absolutely own that. But in my opinion, this was just a little too much. It felt forced. It feels forced. And, Brewers fans are going to root like hell that he pitches well because he is a very, very pretty penny for him to be in this bullpen. That's probably not going to even be pitching the 8th or the 9th inning. Rogers and Williams, it sounds like it's going to be closer by committee. depending on the day, depending on the lineup. Rogers maybe will get that stint against all lefties. Williams can get either side out, but it just going to depend on day to day. And now you've got multiple high leverage guys in this bullpen right now. Matt Bush can have high leverage. We saw Brad Boxberger pitch in the 6th inning yesterday. Hobie Milner had a clean inning yesterday. Trevor Gott obviously still around. There's like 5-6 guys that are only available for 3 innings. I'm just really confused by it all. I'm very confused, and obviously confused by the lack of a bat, but I'm not as confused about that just because the market wasn't that strong for bats. Let's be honest with ourselves. I saw a lot of folks saying, let's get Joey Gallo. Let's get Joey Gallo. As I explained in Monday's podcast, I don't believe he's a fit. And furthermore, Keston Hiura is waiting in the wings to come up, and he has a better batter profile this year than Joey Gallo. That's my thought there. That's my 2 cents. I wanted to rant. I wanted to get that off my chest. Let's move on. Let's talk about the roster. Let's talk about the moves that are coming. And the bright note here, Freddie Peralta is back today. So that's very good news for the Brew Crew. As we get ready to move along in this episode, I want to take a second to remind you about our presenting sponsor today, BlueNile.com. Blue Nile, Nile like the river, Nile.com. You can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the perfect custom engagement ring, or you can gift a classic timely jewelry piece, all at prices you're not going to find at a traditional jeweler. They have expert advice available 24/7 with legendary service with 30-day returns, and when you commit to a piece, so does Blue Nile. They have guaranteed service and repair for life. And speaking of the price, they have the diamond price guarantee. You can contact Blue Nile to compare a competitor's diamond to one of their own, and in most cases, Blue Nile can meet or beat their price. Whether you're customizing that ring or just designing stud earrings or finding a good bracelet, online jeweler, the OG online jeweler, Blue Nile, will allow you to create a bigger, more brilliant piece than you can imagine at a price you will not find at a traditional jeweler. They have simple online tools that will help you choose the shape, the size, the clarity, the setting style, and their bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring, and every single one is truly one of a kind. And right now, during the Blue Nile anniversary sale, you can save up to 40% off on jewelry pieces and even 25% off on engagement ring settings. Come on, when are you going to see engagement rings on sale like this? Plus, every order is insured, it ships for free, and it arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Okay, roster crunch time. Let's give a quick kind of a Cliff Notes version of what's going on with the roster and a quick refresher in case this has always been one ear, out the other. Let me remind you, you have a 40-man roster called the Big League roster, meaning that you can be called up and down from AAA, AA, whatever, if you're on the 40-man roster. Whenever you get added, say a guy is making his Big League debut, he needs to be added to the 40-man roster saying like, hey, these are the pool of players that the team feels is going to help the Big League club. And when you're on that 40-man roster, you are then selected to the 26-man roster, the active roster. So as math, 14 players are on the 40-man roster that are not on the active roster. That could be guys on the injured list. That could also be guys just in the minor leagues right now. When you look at what the Brewers have going on right now, they have multiple guys on the 15-day IL and the 60-day IL. There's a big difference between the two ILs. When you're on the 15-day IL, you're still on the 40-man roster. Whereas when you're on the 60-day IL, you get taken off the 40-man roster, only temporarily, so that when you are activated, you have to be put back onto the 40-man, which makes you thus eligible to be active onto the 26-man roster. Now, why does that happen? It's because, let's think about it. If a guy's got Tommy John surgery and he's not going to be pitching anytime soon, why would the team want to be wasting a 40-man roster spot for a guy that won't be pitching in over a year? So you do that for extended injuries, for long recovery injuries. And what we've seen this year from the Brewers having to use that 60-day IL a few times. And when I look at Freddie Peralta, obviously he needs to be added to the 40-man roster, which is currently full. Where does the roster crunch happen? There's a few ways you can get a guy off of your 40-man roster. Number one, put him onto the 60-day IL. And in my opinion, this is the move that I think could happen tomorrow, or today, I should say. Jace Peterson out with a PRP injection in his elbow. They might put him on the 60-day IL. That would open up a spot for Freddie to rejoin the team easily. Keeps Jace on the injured list. They know he won't be back until probably September at the earliest, so this makes sense to put him there. The other way you can do it is you can outright somebody or you can DFA somebody. When you outright somebody, that means you're clearing them through waivers. That means every other team has a chance to pluck this player from your organization to get them off of your 40-man roster. Or if you DFA somebody or designate for assignment, that means the player is out of minor league options, and you run the risk of them becoming a free agent if they decline that minor league assignment, because that's designated for assignment. The assignment is going back to the minor leagues, even though you don't have any options remaining. Options meaning a chance 3 years that a player can go up and down between the big leagues. So, for instance, Keston Hiura is in his second option year right now. He can be optioned again next year between AAA and the big leagues, but then in 2024, the Brewers will not be able to option him if they use that next year. There are other rights and things like that. Anyway, I'm going on too long on this Cliff Notes version, but what I just said, I think Jace moving from the 15-day to the 60-day IL is the most logical move right now to put Freddie onto the 40-man roster. Another thing to remember, Matt Bush was not active in yesterday's game. Matt Bush was not active in the game. He's on the 40-man roster, but he wasn't on the 26-man roster yet. And I imagine he'll be activated today, as the most obvious move would be optioning Peter Strzelecki back to AAA. That seems like it's an easy fit in there. Remember, Trevor Rosenthal is still on the injured list. He's not coming back soon. But you already have Lamet and you already have Rogers in the big league bullpen and active and ready to go there. So they filled that thing up. When it comes to Cousins and Topa, another move will be needed to be made for them to return to this big league roster. So keep that in mind. And just for kicks and giggles, another thing that we've all forgotten about, JC Mejia, who's currently on the suspended list for 80 games for a PED suspension back on May 17th, he just started a rehab assignment. In case you're wondering when that started, so May 17th, game 37, 80 games. Game 117 would be when he's eligible to come back. That is right when the Brewers head to Chicago in 3 weekends. So August 19th will be his first game eligible to return, and yet another guy that's not on the 40-man roster, if the Brewers choose to keep him, would be added to the roster. Speaking of guys trying to figure out if they're going to keep, what's the plan with Pedro Severino? They didn't trade Narvaez. They didn't trade Caratini. Those two guys continue to get the lion's share of starts. Another righty is starting today for the Pirates, so you know Severino's not going to get the start. And maybe there's a little bit of depth for Severino to play backup first base. He's only played 4 innings there in first base in his big league career. Caratini's got more experience there, so he hasn't beat there. But if you're going to have Caratini be the backup first baseman, then you would want to carry a third catcher in that regard. But Brasso has played a little bit of first base, and if Jace does come back healthy, he can play a little bit of first base. I just don't see where it fits anymore. I really don't see where it fits anymore for Severino. Obviously, nobody bid to trade for him. He's not eligible for the postseason. The Brewers will be thinking about maybe cutting him when the timing is right, when they need to bring back a Cousins or a Topa or to activate a Trevor Rosenthal, something like that. I feel like it's got to happen soon. That's just a small idea of the roster crunch the Brewers are facing right now with this 40-man roster and the 26-man roster. But one little sliver is that in a month, September 1, the roster does expand to 28 players. You can carry an extra man on your bench and an extra man in your bullpen. 14 is the max. So that will help things out briefly, but it's still going to be a hard time to figure out between now and September 1st of how you're going to mix and match these arms that are healthy enough. And all of a sudden, this bullpen is very right-handed heavy. Taylor Rogers is obviously a lefty. Hobie Milner is obviously a lefty. They got to figure out what they're doing with Brent Suter. And Suter, by the way, has options remaining. If they run out of room and they option Suter, that would be shocking, but who knows what could happen at this point. Everything's been wild. And yesterday was a weird game. Let's go ahead and talk about that game. Before we do that, I'll tell you about BetOnline, one of our most popular sponsors here on the show. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every single league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. They've got everything on there, and you wouldn't be surprised. But, of course, the Padres are now the World Series favorites to win or the World Series favorites, according to the sports books. And you can check that out at Bet Online right now using your phone or on your desktop to find more about the trends and get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Brewers fall 5-3. All 8 runs were contained in one inning. A 3-run top of the 6th and a 5-run bottom of the 6th. It was a weird game. Corbin Burnes did not have his command, to say the least. Only 51% of his pitches were strikes. He had a career-high 5 walks. He also hit 2 batters. And the only pitch, aside from the walks, of course, that he really wants back is the changeup he threw to O'Neal Cruz. But I'm in the opinion of tip your cap to O'Neal Cruz. That pitch was outside, off the plate, and a changeup, and a pitch that he's struggled with. It was a little up, sure, it was hittable, but to hit that to dead center over the wall and gone, holy cow. O'Neal Cruz's 7th home run of the bigs, 4 of them have come against the Brewers. Oh my goodness. So Corbin Burnes gives up a 3-run homer after the Brewers got 3 solo homers in the top of the 6th inning. They went back-to-back with Adames and Tellez, and then also had a home run added by Colton Long. Colton Long went 3 for 3 in this game with that home run. More on that stat line in a second, that it, suspiciously stops at 3 for 3. But more about Burnes here. He only went 9 for 27 in first pitch strikes. The cutter was not there. They were staying off of it as well. Only 50% of his cutters were strikes as well. He had a good chunk of swings and misses in this game. But when you look at how it shook out, he had 8 swings and misses the first time through the order, but then he only finished with 4 more the rest of the game. The changeup was a good pitch for him. Also the curveball, they had 8 swings and misses, 4 and 4 on those 2 pitches. Only 1 whiff on the cutter the entire game. Pirates came in with a game plan. We've talked about in the past that they're a team that does not chase a lot, and they swing less than most other teams. Physically swing. The Daniel Vogelback effect, if you will. They made Corbin Burnes work. It worked, and they ended up winning this game thanks to some bad defense. So the 3-run homer ties things in the bottom of the 6th inning by O'Neal Cruz. Brewers have a chance to just move on and shake it off, but another walk by Burnes puts a runner on first base with 1 out. And then a ground ball down the first base line just past the diving Tellez, rolls all the way down to the corner. It allows the run to score off the bat of Van Meter. Van Meter scores from first off the bat of Heineman. And while Heineman was rounding first base on the good throw from Renfroe to get it back into play, Willie Adames cuts the ball off and sees Heineman a little too far off at first base, tries to backpick him at first, and he throws it away. And because it was an infielder receiving the ball from the outfield, throwing it out of play, that's a 2-base error, puts him on third. He scores on a passed ball, and the run is unearned. When it rains, it pours is what I tweeted when the Brewers fall, when the Brewers defense struggles, and when things happen in that regard. Boxberger got out of the frame. The run that he allowed was on that hit, on the inherited run for Heineman, but it was unearned. After him, McGee and Milner kept things afloat. They went 3 up, 3 down innings. Milner struck out the side, by the way. But the Brewers, the big moment came in the 7th inning. They had a chance to punch right back, down 5-3. And as the rally forms, the Brewers get runners on second and third with 1 out after a single from Yelich and a double from Adames. Due up is Rowdy Tellez with the lefty Manny Benuelos on the mound. Craig Counsell decides to go to Mike Brasso to pinch hit for Tellez, given, as Counsell said at postgame, a base hit ties the game, and that's all we were looking for in that situation. Brasso torches lefties, which he does, and he's been good off the bench for us, which he has been. And he gets hit by a pitch. So better yet, you have the guy you wanted situationally try to get a hit. It's taken out of his hands, but now you got the bases loaded, 1 out, and a righty and Andrew McCutchen in the box against a lefty, Manny Benuelos. This is exactly why you brought Andrew McCutchen in for this exact situation. Andrew McCutchen ends up flying out to center field in a shallow pop. It wasn't deep enough to allow the runner to tag. It was on a 1-2 pitch as well, so he fell behind in that count. Wasn't deep enough for Yelich to tag. That's the 2nd out of the inning. And now, remember I said Colton Long went 3 for 3 with 1 homer? Well, it's because he was pinch hit by Pedro Severino, who ended up striking out against the lefty Manny Benuelos. I get it. The platoons, the Brewers live and die by the platoons. But sometimes, man, Colton Long is white hot right now. I would have been happy to go down with the ship if Colton Long lost that matchup left on left after already using Brasso. Only after using Brasso. I would have understood if you left Rowdy in and then used Brasso for Wong, because that makes a little more sense defensively. You keep Rowdy's power in the order, natural power, as opposed to Wong's not a home run hitter. Yes, he hit a home run in this game, but he's not a consistent home run hitter. You keep Rowdy's bat in the lineup for what looks like they will come back up in the ninth inning, which, yes, those spots came back up in the ninth inning. Brewers live and die by the platoon. You should know that by now. I would have liked to let it ride with at least one of those guys, with at least Tellez or Wong. I understand why they brought in Brasso. He would have been the only guy I brought off the bench personally, and not bring up Severino. He gets called out on strikes, and that ends the seventh inning and virtually ended the game as the Brewers couldn't muster up anything else. Will Crowe ended up getting all 3 outs via strikeout in the ninth, despite a single by Yelich, who extended his hitting streak to 11 games, but the Brewers fall 5-3. Okay, let's wrap this up with just a quick thought. It's one game. Okay, it's one game. They're 57-46. There's still 2 games up on the Cardinals, who won yesterday against the Cubs. So right now, they're 103 games down, 59 games to go. You can't judge all 60 games how they're going to go by just one game. Was the offense perfect tonight? No. Going 9 runners left on base and 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position, not great. Dust yourself off. Get ready. 59 games to go. And as I said, in the very first 3 pods of the season, this division is coming down to the last week. Buckle up. Trade deadlines passed. The Cardinals did not get Juan Soto. Both of these teams have very similar offensive profiles. The pitching is going to be where it carries both of these teams. Buckle up. All right. Another game tonight, 6:05 first pitch on Valley Sports Wisconsin. Pre-game coverage at 5:30. We'll be right back here tomorrow morning with another Locked On Brewers. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you right back here tomorrow. Until then, keep on swinging. I know I just signed off a second ago, but right when I finished recording, found out that the news that came out while I was actually recording this podcast, that Vin Scully passed away at the age of 94 last night. And I wanted to take a quick moment here at the end of the pod to just explain, if you've never, maybe if you're a little too young to have remembered Vin Scully and how important he was to the craft that I'm trying to do. I'm still trying to be a play-by-play broadcaster. He has touched every single person that's ever been on a microphone in baseball. That's not an exaggeration. Everybody at some point in their life has been asked, well, are you going to be able to do it like Vin Scully did it? And he was truly the greatest of all time. And that's still an understatement. But he was the greatest broadcaster of all time, too. That wasn't even the best accolade for him. He was the best human of all time. The warmth you felt when you walked into that booth, there was no ego. There was no bigger than life, because he was bigger than life, bigger than the game. There was none of that when he walked into the booth to meet Mr. Scully. And I was so lucky to meet him when I was 14 years old. And he treats everybody the same. If you're the janitor, if you're a kid, if you're a Hall of Famer on the Dodgers, it doesn't matter. He treated everybody the same, with the same kindness and warmth and genuine attitude that we just don't see today anymore. And a quick story for Vin. I don't want to go too long. It's already been a long day. But when I was 14 years old, I was lucky enough to meet Vin Scully. And I've never been so starstruck in my life. And still to this day, I've been lucky to meet some amazing people in baseball through my world, and through my dad, and through this current job. But I was never as starstruck as I was meeting Mr. Scully. And that was the first day of a 3-game series that I got to meet Mr. Scully. And he was so kind and he was gracious, and we said hello, we talked baseball. It didn't matter what we talked about. I was just smiling ear to ear, just trying not to, seem weird, And fast forward to the last day of the series. I hadn't been back in the booth. I hadn't, said anything to him other than that first day. And fast forward to the last day of the series, I'm walking down the hallway in the press box. I'm walking back over to another booth, and here comes Mr. Scully walking toward me. And I hadn't seen him in 2 days. And he goes, "Oh, hey, Dom, how's it going? How are you doing today?" Just walking by, saying hello to the 14-year-old kid, brace face with, mop top hair that is just flabbergasted that not only did Vin Scully say hi to me, but he remembered my name just 2 days later. And he just made everybody feel like that. He was the best. So obviously praying for the Scully family, the Dodger family, and the baseball family. Everybody lost an icon today, and that was a really, really tough way to end the day yesterday. I just wanted to express my gratitude to Mr. Scully for everything he's done for broadcasting, everything he's done for the game, and he will be dearly, dearly missed. And I know he's happy in heaven, sitting with the two loves of his life and getting to see all of the players that he broadcasted for, and getting to see Sandra again, who passed away from ALS last year, and getting to see Joan Crawford again, his first wife, who passed away in the 70s. So Vin Scully, an icon. I raise a glass to you and wish prayers to your family, and thank you for all the memories in this beautiful game of baseball.